I shot my father in the leg that night. Not to kill him, but to make him feel the slow burn of 20 years' worth of lies crawling out of his rotting soul. He crumpled like a cheap suit on the linoleum of that confessional booth in St. Mary's, his blood pooling black under the flickering fluorescent light. And as the cops dragged me away in cuffs, I screamed the truth into the night. He made me the monster so he could play the saint. The parish priest, old Father O'Malley, crossed himself and muttered something about the devil's work. But deep down, everyone in that godforsaken Chicago neighborhood knew the cold case that had haunted us since '05 wasn't some phantom killer. It was family, buried deeper than any grave. My name's Lucia Moretti, and if you think revenge is a dish best served cold, try swallowing it after it's been festering in your gut for 2 decades. I was 22 when it all went to hell. Fresh out of community college with dreams of opening a little bookstore in Wicker Park. The kind with creaky floors and shelves sagging under dog-eared copies of Carver and Polinick. Dad, Vincent Moretti, the golden boy of the 42nd Precinct, had other plans. He was the cop who always had a story. The one who'd spin yarns about busting mobsters in Little Italy over plates of spaghetti at Nana's. But beneath that badge was a man who'd trade his daughter's future for a promotion quicker than you'd flip a silver dollar. It started with the Ramirez girl, Sophia, 16, undocumented, working double shifts at the corner bodega to send money back to her family in Juarez. She vanished one humid August night in 2005, her backpack found tossed in an alley off Halstead like yesterday's trash. The papers called it the summer ghost case, sensational shit that had the whole city buzzing.
Me?
I was her friend. Or as close as you get when you're both outsiders in a neighborhood that chews up dreamers and spits out husks. We'd sneak smokes behind the L tracks, her giggling about boys back home, me venting about Dad's endless shifts. Then poof, gone. No body, no ransom. Just whispers of coyotes or worse. Dad was lead on the case. Hero cop, they said. The one who'd crack it wide open. But 3 months in, with a trail colder than Lake Michigan in January, he pulled me aside one night after a family dinner. We were in the kitchen. The smell of garlic and regret thick in the air. Mom already half in the bag with her boxed wine. Lucia, he said, voice low like he was sharing state secrets. I need you to do something for me. For us.
Us.
That word always twisted like a knife. What followed was a script straight out of a bad cop show. Plan evidence. A bloody knife from Sophia's shift, smeared with pig's blood from the butcher down the block. Dropped in my apartment. Why me? Because I was clean, no priors. No enemies. And because, he said, you're the only one I trust to keep the family whole. The real killer? His partner, Tommy Hale. Yeah, that Tommy. The smooth-talking Irish brute with the crooked grin and the gambling debts that could sink the Titanic. He'd botched a shakedown on a low-level cartel runner. Things went south. And Sophia? Wrong place. Wrong time. Tommy panicked. Dumped her in the Calumet River. Weighted down like so much garbage. Dad knew. Covered it up from the jump because Tommy had dirt on him. Some kickback scheme from the 90s that would have stripped his pension and landed him in Supermax. So instead of turning his brother in arms, Vincent Moretti fed his own blood to the wolves.
Me.
I did it because he was Dad. Because he promised it'd be a slap on the wrist, misdemeanor tampering, maybe community service. Think of your mother, he begged. Eyes wet like he meant it. Bullshit. The knife led straight to me. And by dawn, I was in an interrogation room, sweat soaking my tank top, while Dad played the devastated father on the other side of the glass. "My little girl," he told the press, voice cracking just right for the cameras. They ate it up. Planted evidence or not. The DA spun it as me cracking under guilt, confessing to the murder in a plea deal that shaved years off my sentence. 7 years in Logan Correctional. That's what I got for loving a liar. Sophia's family deported in the fallout. Her mother wailing on the news like a gutted fish. Out in 12, I was a ghost. Changed my name to Lucia Hale, no relation to Tommy. Just a middle finger to the both of them. Worked odd jobs, barista in Logan Square. Then night security at a warehouse in Pilsen. Kept my head down, but the rage, it simmered. A pot left too long on the stove. I'd see Dad at holidays. Him toasting with Kiani like nothing happened, Mom oblivious in her fog of denial.
Tommy?
Promoted to sergeant, fat and happy, coaching Little League on weekends. Every time I drove past his house on the south side, that picket fence mocking me, I'd grip the wheel till my knuckles bleached. Then, last winter, the hook that yanked me back under, Father O'Malley's call. Dad was dying pancreatic. Stage 4. The kind that eats you from the inside out. Hospice in some sterile box on the north side. Tubes snaking like accusations. He wants to confess, the priest said, voice hushed like it was holy.
Confess.
The word tasted like battery acid. I almost hung up, but something, curiosity, spite, drove me there. Snow blanketing the city like a shroud. I pulled up to Mercy Hospital, boots crunching ice, heart pounding a war drum. He looked small in that bed, skin jaundiced, eyes sunken like pits. "Lucia," he rasped, hand trembling toward mine. I jerked back. "Don't." The room smelled of bleach and regret. Monitors beeping a dirge. That's when he spilled it, not the knife. Not Tommy.
But the why.
Turns out, the cartel runner Tommy shook down? It was Sophia's uncle. Smuggling not just people, but product. Dad had been in on the original bust, but he'd skimmed a cut for himself, stashing cash in a safety deposit box that could have bought us out of the neighborhood. When Sophia crossed paths with Tommy, it wasn't random, she was bait. Unknowingly, in a setup to silence the uncle. Dad knew, buried the files, and when Tommy pulled the trigger, metaphorically, a chokehold gone wrong, he made the call, pin it on me to close the case.
Protect deskim.
And keep Tommy's mouth shut. "You were collateral," he whispered, tears carving tracks in the yellow. "I thought you'd beat it. You're tough. Like your nana."
Tough.
I'd spent years in a cage because of his tough, emerging with tattoos snaking at my arms and trust shattered like cheap glass. "Collateral," I echoed, voice flat. "Like roadkill." He nodded. Broken. And that's when the confessional booth flashed in my mind, not St. Mary's proper, but the side chapel where cops spilled their sins without the collar. I'd tailed him there once, after a bender, curiosity killing the cat. Now, it was time to drag the corpse to light. I left him that night with a promise. Absolution's a myth.
Dad.
But pain? That's real. Back in my studio in Ukrainian village. Walls papered with case clippings I'd hoarded like a junkie. I plotted. Not murder. Too clean. Too final.
No.
I wanted him to choke on it. Publicly. While the world watched his halo shatter. Tommy first.
Though.
He was the blade. Dad just held the handle. A week later, Anonymous tip to Internal Affairs. Coordinates to that safety deposit box. Photos of Tommy's bookie slip sides swiped from his trash years back. The feds swarmed like locusts, and, by morning, Tommy was in cuffs, bellowing about setups while his wife packed boxes in the driveway. Kids' toys scattered like shrapnel. Dad called from hospice. Voice a wheeze. "What have you done, Lucia?" I laughed, cold as the wind off the lake. Confessing.
Pop.
Your turn. But he didn't break public, not yet. Clung to his bed like a barnacle. Visitors streaming in old badges. Neighborhood fixers. Even the mayor's aide with a fruit basket. Me? I waited. A spider in the web. Spinning threads from the shadows. The leak hit the trib first. A Sunday splash. Cold case crumbles. Cop cover-up in Ramirez murder? Byline from that pitbull reporter. Elena Vasquez, sharp as a switchblade, with a nose for bullshit that'd make Columbo blush. She'd been sniffing around the case since her internship days, back when I was still rotting in Logan. The story laid it bare, Tommy's confession in the box. Spilling about the chokehold. The river dump. Dad's skim from the cartel bust. No mention of me. Not yet, but the knife? Planted evidence. They called it a tragic misstep in the rush to justice. Tragic. I nearly puked reading it over coffee in my threadbare kitchen, the steam curling like ghosts. Phone rang off the hook after that. Mom. Sobbing. Lucia. It's not true. Tell me it's not. I hung up. Vasquez herself. Voice like velvet over gravel. MS. Moretti? Or should I say Hale? Care to comment on your role? I smashed the receiver down. Heart jackhammering. How'd she connect the dots?
Dad.
The bastard must have whispered it in his delirium, absolving himself by torching us all. I stormed out into the slushy streets, breath fogging the air, past the Polish delis and hipster bars that had sprung up like weeds since my prison days. Ukrainian Village wasn't home anymore. It was a graveyard of what-ifs. Hospice next. Security waved me through family privilege, even for pariahs. Dad was propped up, oxygen mask fogging with each shallow pull. A priest droning last rites in the corner. Father O'Malley, eyes darting like he knew the storm brewing. Lucia, Dad croaked as I yanked the curtain shut. I had to. Clean slate.
Clean.
The word ignited something feral. I leaned in close, breath hot on his ear. Your slate's got my blood on it, old man. And Tommy's singing like a canary because of me. His eyes widened, the monitor spiking. You? Before he could finish, the door burst. Cops. Badges flashing. Vasquez trailing like a hyena with a notebook. Vincent Moretti. You're under arrest for obstruction, evidence tampering, and accessory to murder. Chaos. Tubes ripping free. Dad hacking blood-flecked phlegm. Mom shrieking from the hall like a banshee. I slipped out the back. Pulse thundering. The cold slapping my face like judgment. Free? For now. But the web was tightening. That's when the antagonist stepped fully into the light. Not Dad. Not Tommy. But Elena Vasquez herself. Yeah. The reporter. Turns out, she'd been playing both sides longer than a politician at a fundraiser. I dug into her after that, late nights at the library's microfiche machines, cross-referencing her bylines with precinct logs. Bingo, Elena's father, Raul Vasquez, was the cartel runner Tommy shook down. The one whose skim Dad pocketed.
Raul.
Vanished after the bust, presumed dead in a ditch south of the border. Elena? She'd clawed her way into journalism on that vendetta, feeding tips to IAD anonymously for years, but holding the Ramirez card close, waiting for the perfect gut punch. Her flip? Masterful. That hospital tip? Hers. But twisted. She'd visited Dad days before, posing as a sympathetic scribe, recording his ramblings on a hidden mic. Leaked just enough to fry Tommy without fingering Dad fully, keeping her source alive for the big reveal.
Why?
Leverage. She cornered me 2 nights later, in a dive bar off Division. The kind with sticky floors and jukebox blues wailing Johnny Cash. Lucia, she said, sliding onto the stool beside me, perfume cutting through the stale beer funk. We're not so different. Both daughters avenging ghosts. I eyed her over my whiskey neat,
Like Dad taught me.
sharp bob haircut, eyes like polished obsidian, suit jacket slung over her chair like armor shed. My ghost is buried under your byline. Vasquez. Sophia was my friend. She smirked, that controversial edge glinting, the kind that makes you question if she's savior or serpent. And my father's under your family's boot. Tit for tat. She slid a USB drive across the bar. Cool as contraband. Everything. Tapes. Docs. Tommy's full statement. Yours if you help me nail Vincent.
Publicly.
Make him the villain the city deserves. Controversial? Hell yes. Team up with the enemy's kin? It reeked of betrayal squared. But damn if it didn't sing to the devil in me. Decisions like that, they split you down the middle. Right and wrong bleeding together. I took the drive, down my drink, and walked out into the neon haze. Back home, files spilling across my laptop, Dad's bank records, falsified reports, even a love letter to Mom dated the week after Sophia vanished, promising a new start. Lies layered like lasagna. We met again at her loft in West Loop, Lofts. Because Chicago's yuppies had priced out the artists, turning grit to gloss. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Loop's electric pulse. Skyline throbbing like a migraine. Elena poured Malbec. Legs crossed on a leather sectional that screamed, I made it. The plan, she said, voice a conspirator's purr, is the booth. St. Mary's. That confessional where Tommy spilled. Vincent goes there every Friday. Habit. Penance. We lure him. Mic him. Broadcast live to my podcast feed. Confessions of a Crooked Cop. Ratings gold. And justice served. Justice. The word hung. Tainted. Dad was dying. Sure. But broadcasting his soul-bearing? It'd crucify him. Mom collateral again. The neighborhood fracturing along old fault lines. Cops versus civilians. Italians versus Latinos. Blue lives versus the forgotten. I paced. Wine sloshing. The city lights mocking my indecision. And me? I pressed. What about the girl who did the time? Elena's smile was a blade. Hero. The whistleblower who endured. Book deal. Maybe. Or just peace.
Peace.
I'd forgotten the taste. But as we hashed details, scripted prompts via burner phone, a hidden camera in the preview, doubt nod. Her flips were endless. 1-minute ally. Sharing stories of Raoul's ghost haunting her dreams. Next. Probing my weak spots. Like how I'd smuggled letters to Sophia's sister in prison. Or the one-night stands that chased away the cell block echoes. You're broken, Lucia, she'd say. Casual as commenting on the weather. But useful.
Scheming bitch.
but mirror to my own darkness. The night came fast. Adrenaline a live wire. I called Dad from a payphone near the church, rusty relic in the age of cells, voice disguised with a scarf over the receiver. Vincent Moretti, the Ramirez family knows. Midnight. The booth. Come alone. Or it hits the wires.
Click.
I watched from a shadowed alley as his cab pulled up, him hobbling out on a cane, breath pluming in the December chill. Elena in position. Feed live to a dark web stream. Subscribers trickling in. True crime junkies. Cop haters. The voyeuristic underbelly of America. He entered the booth, knees creaking on the kneeler, murmuring Hail Marys like muscle memory. I slipped in the adjacent stall, heart slamming, separated by that lattice screen like judgment's veil. Who's there? He rasped, sensing the trap. Your daughter, I said, voice steady as steel. Time to confess.
Pop.
For real. The mic caught it all, the skim, the setup. Tommy's hands around Sophia's throat, my frame-up. His sobs echoed, raw as an open wound. I did it for us, Lucia. For you to have better. Better. 7 years of barbed wire and regret, all for his better. Elena's voice crackled in my earpiece. Push him. The why. I did, leaning close, the screen pressing cold against my lips. Why me? Dad? Why not burn yourself? His answer shattered. Because you were the weak link. The one who'd fold.
Take the plea.
I tested you. And you passed. Tested. Like I was lab rat in his moral maze. The stream exploded, comments flooding. Monster dad. She's as guilty. This is fake. Cops all corrupt. Polarizing. Just like the air in that booth. Thick with heresy. But then the twist in the confessional air, a cough from the shadows outside. Footsteps. Not Elena, her feed cut mid-sentence. The door to my side swung open, and there stood Tommy Hale, out on bail, eyes wild with junky gleam. You bitch, he snarled, gun from his waistband glinting under the crucifix's glow. Betrayal's encore. Tommy's gun trembled in his meaty fist, the barrel a black eye staring me down through the confessional's gloom. 20 years, he growled, spittle flecking his lip. And you drag me back to this shithole? The church smelled of incense and old sin. Pews empty save for the echo of Dad's ragged breaths from the other side. I froze. Palms slick. Mind racing through escape routes. The side door to the vestibule. Maybe. Or the holy water font as a makeshift shield. But Tommy was blocking. His free hand clutching a crumpled printout, Elena's leak. No doubt. Waved like a red flag. Dad, I yelled. But Vincent was a husk. Slumped against the lattice. Murmuring incoherently. Tommy laughed. Bitter as black coffee. Your old man's done.
Luce. But you?
You're the loose end I should have tied off in Logan. Loose end. The words landed like hooks, yanking up memories, prison whispers of a favor from the outside, cigarettes and protection that came with strings I never saw. Tommy's strings, pulling from afar. He'd watched me, protected me, not out of guilt, but to keep my mouth shut.
Now.
With the stream dead and Elena God knows where, he was cutting them all. I lunged for the screen, splintering wood as I tumbled into his booth. The gun cracking wide, bullet whining into the rafters, dislodging dust like confetti from hell. We grappled, me clawing for the wrist, him swinging wild haymakers that grazed my jaw. "You framed me," I spat, knee driving into his gut. He wheezed, staggering, but held the peace, thumb flicking the safety off. Outside, sirens wailed. Elena's doing? Or the stream's fallout summoning the blues. Time fractured. Dad's voice. "Faint, Tommy." "No." And Elena bursting through the narthex doors. Phone raised like a talisman. "Live again." Chicago PD. "Drop it." Controversy incarnate. Tommy whirled. Gun barking twice. Wild shots that shattered a stained glass pane. Mary's face fracturing in crimson shards. Elena dove behind a pew, screaming into her cell. Shots fired. St. Mary's, 2200 block. I scrambled, grabbing a candelabrum from the altar, brass, heavy as judgment, and swung. It connected with Tommy's temple. A sickening thud that dropped him like a sack of hammers, the gun skittering across the tiles. He groaned, blood welling dark from his scalp, but alive. No gore, just the metallic tang of it mixing with wax. Cops swarmed then, boots thundering, tasers humming. Dad was stretchered out, pale as Eucharist, while medics patched Tommy. Elena cornered me against the baptismal font, eyes alight with the scoop of the century. "You saved my ass," she said, breathless. But her smile was serpentine. "And I saved the story. We're even."
Even?
Her flip revealed in the chaos. That dead feed? Deliberate. To flush Tommy, whom she'd baited with a fake tip-off. He was the real threat, she confessed later. Over bad hospital coffee. The one who'd silence us both. Schemer to the core. Her decisions a Rorschach test, heroic journalism or manipulative revenge porn. The climax broke like a fever. Press conference next on. City Hall steps slick with melt. Flashbulbs popping like gunfire. Mayor in a suit too tight, flanked by the commissioner and Sophia's sister. Flown in from El Paso, Maria. Eyes hard as agates. Clutching a faded photo. Vasquez emceed. Mic gleaming. Today, we close a wound 20 years open. Testimonies rolled. Tommy's formal plea. Dad's recorded ramble sanitized. Elena's edit. And me, Lucia Hale, the exonerated survivor, voice steady as I laid bare the frame-up. The test. The collateral cost. "Justice isn't clean," I said. Cameras drinking it in. It's a scar that itches forever. The crowd split like Moses Sea. Cheers from the south side. Chants of "lock him up" from the Latinos who'd lost kin to the cartels. Boos from the union reps. Blue line flags waving defiant. "Cop killers," one bellowed, while a kid in a Bulls hoodie yelled, "Free Lucia." Polarizing perfection, no heroes. Just survivors clawing from the muck. Mom wept in the front row. Disowned Dad in a whisper to the press. I didn't know. Liar. But who was counting? Dad died that night. Monitors flatlining as the feeds looped my words. Hospice called it peaceful, but I saw it for what it was. Escape.
Tommy?
15 to life. No parole. His Little League whistle gathering dust. Elena? Pulitzer buzz. Her book deal announced before the ink dried on the charges.
Me?
Cleared. A check from the city's wrongful conviction fund, 6 figures. Enough for that bookstore. Maybe. But as I stood on the lakefront that spring, wind whipping off the water, waves gnashing like teeth, the twist uncoiled, a letter, postmarked from Juarez, slipped under my door. Sophia's mother. Not deported after all, Elena's doing. Pulling strings with her bylines. Dear Lucia, it read, Script shaky. Maria tells me of your pain. But know this. Sophia spoke of you. Her Chicago sister. The river took her. But not our bond. Forgive?
No.
But live for her. Enclosed. A locket. Silver. Engraved with a tiny cactus. The one Sophia wore that last night. I clasped it, salt stinging my eyes, not tears. Just the lake spray. Happy ending? Tragic farce? You decide. I opened the shop anyway. Hales Haven. Shelves stocked with noir and redemption tales. Customers filter in, cops nursing coffees. Ex-cons browsing Bukowski. Elena dropping by with galleys of her manuscript, inscribed, to the ghost who wouldn't stay buried. But late nights, when the L rumbles past like judgment, I wonder, was it revenge? Or just another layer of lies? Dad tested me, and I passed by becoming him. Elena flipped the script. But whose side was she on? Tommy pulled triggers, but we all loaded the gun. Chicago chews you up, spits you out remade, and in the end, the cold case isn't closed, it's etched in us. A scar that debates itself in the mirror. Absolution? Still a myth. But this itch? I'll scratch it till it bleeds truth.